The Maxus T90EV was the UK's very first all-electric pickup, but it certainly won't be the last. There are some compromises to make if you're to make the switch away from diesel in a truck of this kind, but the tax advantages are significant. A certain kind of customer might be tempted. The last bastion of combustion power is the pickup truck, but even this rough and ready genre must one day fall to the EV revolution. Here it already has. Enter the Maxus T90EV, our market's first full electric pickup. This Chinese contender, sold in Thailand and Pakistan as the MG Extender, isn't quite as much of a genre revolutionary product as it might first appear. Actually, all Maxus brand owner SAIC Motor has done is to rip out the normal T90's diesel engine and add a heavy drive battery to the same chassis. Still, it's the first EV pickup we've seen, and that makes it very significant indeed. Swing up behind the wheel, and it feels like any other old-fashioned style pickup truck. But then just to remind you that this one has an eye on the future, there's an EV branded circular drive selector on the center console, and a power meter takes the place of the usual rev counter on the left-hand side of the instrument binnacle, on which a green ready sign appears when you twist the key. But ready for what? Well, the noisiest electric vehicle we've ever tried in terms of its acoustic vehicle alert pedestrian safety noise, which plays at under 20 miles an hour. There's plenty of electric motor whine too, but perhaps the T90 can get away with that being a pickup truck, and it fades into all the wind and tyre roar that you get as you get up to speed. A big thing for potential customers to get used to is the elephant in the room here that we need to address right up front. The fact that this T90 EV doesn't have what you might think would be a prerequisite for most pickups: four-wheel drive. Maxus says that likely customers, apparently people like highway agencies and county vets, think ground clearance of higher significance. Which is unfortunate because by pickup standards there's not a huge amount of that, 187mm. Compare that with the 310mm you get in a Toyota Hilux, for instance. But those customers will be expecting to make compromises for the huge advantage of never having to fuel up ever again, except with charge. Maxus claims that you'll be replenishing the 88.6 kWh battery every 219 miles. That assumes constant use of the most frugal of the three selectable drive modes, Eco. The other two are normal and power. The T90 isn't particularly fast for an EV away from rest, but feels quite rapid for a pickup on the way to a top speed that's limited to 80 miles an hour, which doesn't sound very much, but you really wouldn't want to go much faster than that in this Maxus, and you'd decimate the driving range if you did. As it is, cruising speeds will see that range plummet, and there are no brake regen paddles or settings to harvest energy back into the battery. It certainly feels weird to travel almost silently in a pickup without a rumbly diesel up front. At least the firm, uncompromising ride is familiar. You'll have to like light steering, which makes the T90 easy to maneuver, but gives very little cornering feedback. For off-tarmac use, hill descent control is standard, and at the time of our test in autumn 2023, Maxus was talking about also importing a 4x4 version for our market. For this rear-driven variant, the approach and departure angles are respectively 27 and 24 degrees, which actually is better than we expected. A diesel Hilux, for instance, manages 29 and 26 degrees. There's a decent 550mm wading depth too. Normally with EVs, the only visual giveaways lie with altered badging and the lack of tailpipes. It's a bit different here. The 88.6 kilowatt-hour drive battery is too big to fit in the space vacated by the original version's diesel engine beneath the bonnet, so it has to sit clearly visibly beneath the floor. As you'd expect, this T90EV only comes in this double cab body shape and comes complete with 17-inch alloy wheels and side steps. Plus, as usual with the pickup, you can add a hard top cover for the load bay, like the Carry Boy fitting we have here. And the looks? Well, obviously, if Maxus parent SAIC Motor had engineered this model as an EV from the start, it would have styled it more adventurously, but it's smart enough, particularly here at the front, where the huge silver 3-bar grille makes quite an overtaking statement, flanked by vertical corner light units. Even the rear manages to be distinctive, with black Maxus branding featuring red framing and further down deep corner cutouts for the reflectors. Let's take a look in the cab. A £50,000 truck is usually a pretty luxurious feeling thing inside, but here the investment you're making is in the tax-saving drivetrain, which is pretty clear from the moment you take a seat behind the plastic-rimmed wheel and note the lack of navigation or even a DAB radio on the central 10.25-inch screen. Still, there's nothing wrong with the ergonomics. There's a big rotary gear selector and you're well positioned on supportive seats with faux leather facings. It doesn't feel particularly futuristic or EV-like. There's an old tech ignition key and a manual handbrake, and the instrument dials are defiantly analog with an over-detailed speedo on the right and a power meter on the left. A small black dot matrix screen between the gauges shows your rapidly diminishing remaining range, just above a display showing the odometer mileage and your chosen drive mode. Now, we mentioned the central infotainment screen, most of which on the home screen is taken up by a picture of the vehicle. To the right of that are customizable widget boxes. Here, for instance, we've chosen to view shortcut boxes for the Apple CarPlay smartphone mirroring, plus one for audio preference and another for phone settings. Shortcut options along the screen's right-hand frame connect you into phone, audio, radio settings and media menus. And a rear view camera is built in. It's all pretty standard stuff. We like the way this hexagon finished panel below the monitor is angled out, so there's somewhere to rest your hand when you're using the screen. What else? Well, the touch sensitive climate controls and the cab's red stitched faux leather trimming, they're both smart. The blanked off switches around the gear selector for things this EV model can't have aren't. The indicator and wiper stalks are the wrong way round for our market, plus there's no reach adjustment for the steering wheel. As for practicality, well, there are decently sized door pockets with bottle holders. You get a compartmentalised lidded box between the seats. There's a cubby by the driver's right knee, and Maxus hasn't forgotten an overhead sunglasses compartment. At the bottom of the centre stack, you'll find twin USB-A sockets and a 12-volt port. There's also a shallow cubby on top of the dash with incorporated pen holders. And the glove box is lockable, though unfortunately it isn't very big, with most of the space you do get taken up by the handbook. There's a ticket clip on the driver's sun visor and you get twin open cup holders by the handbrake. There's a pop-up cup holder at either end of the dash. Let's take a look on the back seat. Where the backrest is pretty upright, and there are 12-volt and 3-pin plug sockets wired directly to the dry battery for powering your devices. An armrest with twin cup holders features in the centre of the backrest, plus there's a useful little pocket in the centre of the bench base, along with seat back pockets and reasonably sized door bins. It's easier than it would usually be in a double cab pickup to take a middle seated occupant because there's no high central transmission tunnel. And legroom isn't too cramped thanks to the 3,155mm wheelbase length. Though the backrest doesn't fold down like it usually would in a pickup, the seat base can be pulled up, though you wouldn't be able to store much under it. This is where the vehicle's tyre repair kit is housed. Disappointingly, on a vehicle of this type, you don't get any kind of spare wheel. Even with an unknown Chinese badge on the grille, You won't expect an EV pickup to be cheap, or you shouldn't anyway. This one isn't, costing from launch around £50,000 after deduction of the government's plug-in grant. That's for the rear-driven model that we're looking at here at the time of this test in autumn 2023. As we filmed, Maxus told us that a 4x4 version would follow in 2024. The brand is currently busy expanding its UK dealer network to a target figure of 65 outlets. As for the asking price, well, you could certainly get a high-powered diesel pickup for that, and one fully loaded with equipment in the way that the T90EV isn't. There's faux leather upholstery and a large 10.25-inch centre touchscreen, but no navigation, cruise control, or even a factory-fit DAB radio. But there's everything you really need, including a reversing camera, smartphone mirroring, and electronic stability control. You also get 17-inch alloy wheels, side steps, stainless steel sports bars, rear parking sensors, rain-sensing wipers and front seat heating. There are no camera safety features to speak of, just twin front side and curtain airbags and the usual assistance for braking, traction and stability control. You won't really be buying this Maxus for its equipment levels though. Ultimately, you'll either think this is a crazy proposition to take up or a crazy one to pass up, given the huge potential tax benefits. There'll be no in-betweens. All the usual accessories can be added by your Maxus dealer, including, of course, those we have here, the Carryboy rear load area hardtop and these Airplex bonnet and window air deflectors. This is where you're going to have to decide whether the taxation benefits of choosing this EV-powered pickup, which could be a 5-figure sum, outweigh the practicality downsides over an equivalent diesel model. Now, we've already discussed the lack of four-wheel drive, though, as we've told you in other sections of this film, Maxus was planning at the time of this review to introduce a model that would rectify that. But even when that arrives, the towing capacity still won't match that of a diesel, and in this two-wheel drive T90 is very limited, restricted to just 1,500 kilograms braked. Then there's the payload. This T90EV's introduction here was delayed while it was re-engineered to be able to carry a ton of payload and therefore qualify under UK commercial vehicle registration regulations. You certainly won't be able to take any more than that. The cargo area is at least uncompromised over the diesel donor model. Now that means a load length of 1,485 millimetres and a load width of 1,510 millimetres. The cargo box height is 530 millimetres. If you are fully loaded up, you can forget getting anywhere near the 219-mile EV range figure we quoted in our driving section. Even unloaded, with the Eco Drive mode constantly selected, 180 to 190 miles is a far more realistic figure, and it doesn't help that the range indicator tends to embellish the actual range remaining by between 10 and 20%. Maxus quotes an efficiency figure of 2.49 miles per kilowatt hour. The 88.6 kilowatt-hour battery can replenish itself at a rather modest maximum charge rate of 80 kilowatts. The connection is via a CCS port where the diesel model's fuel filler would be. Maxus claims that recharging from 20 to 80% is possible in 45 minutes from a high voltage DC source. At home, using a 7 kilowatt wall box, you'd need 13 to 15 hours. An 11 kilowatt AC charge from 5 to 100% takes 9 hours. Finally, we'll tell you that servicing intervals are every 18,000 miles and there's a 5-year, 100,000 mile vehicle warranty and an 8-year battery warranty. If your mental picture of a fully electric truck is something like a Ford F-150 Lightning or a Tesla Cybertruck, then a degree of readjustment will be necessary if you're to countenance a Maxus T90EV. It's nothing like either of those futuristic designs in either style or performance, but unlike them, it does lie within the realms of affordability and is available in the UK now. What's certain here is that you can't just hand over the keys to your old diesel pickup and expect anything remotely like for like in return. Particularly here, simply ripping out a diesel powertrain and inserting a battery one instead to an existing design was always going to require a few compromises. You might be tempted to make them though, once you take a look at the potential tax and running cost savings to be made here.